could never afford a dress like that anyway. That's what my daughter-in-law said to me. Right in the middle of the store, in front of everybody. My son stood right there and didn't say a word. I didn't argue. I didn't explain myself. I just sat there until 10 sleek black SUVs pulled up out front, and the first person who walked in called my name. You could never afford something like this anyway. Claire laughed loudly, twirling in front of the huge gilded mirror in that fancy boutique. Her voice cut right through the soft, elegant hush of the place like a knife. I sat quietly on the cream velvet sofa, hands folded calmly in my lap. My son, Ryan, stood just a few feet away, staring down at his expensive leather shoes, like they were the most interesting thing in the room. He didn't say a single word in my defense. Not one. Claire spun around in that massive, over-the-top silk and tulle gown, the kind that easily ran $15,000, and looked down her nose at me. There's no point sitting here pretending you could even cover the veil. We both know your little retirement check wouldn't touch it. Ryan and I are going to have to foot the whole bill even if it completely blows our budget. The saleswoman dressed in a perfect black suit shot me a pitying look that edged into contempt. I stayed completely still. I took a slow, deep breath and felt this strange, crystal-clear calm settle over me. It wasn't the first time Claire had treated me like dirt. Ever since she and Ryan moved into the upstairs of my house 2 years ago, her condescending attitude had only gotten worse. But this was the first time Ryan just stood there and let her humiliate me so openly right in public. I generously offered them $2,000 toward a nice dress as a goodwill gesture, but no, Claire had insisted on dragging me to this overpriced place just to show me up. She figured I was some clueless widow pinching every penny just to get by. She had no idea that after my husband passed, suddenly, I hadn't sold our family transportation company. I'd kept it running quietly in the background, stepping back from day-to-day operations and letting capable people handle it. But the business was still mine. The humiliation hung thick in the air, and Claire was clearly eating up her little victory. I was about to stand up and end the whole ridiculous scene when the noise outside changed. A deep, rumbling engine sound made the big display windows vibrate. What on earth was that commotion out front? 10 brand new glossy black luxury SUVs rolled up in perfect formation right in front of the boutique. The massive vehicles gleamed under the bright afternoon sun, their tinted windows hiding everything inside. The entire store went dead silent. The saleswoman took a step back, her champagne flute trembling a little in her hand. Even Claire forgot about admiring herself in the mirror for a second and just stared outside. The passenger door of the lead SUV opened. A tall, sharply dressed man in his mid-40s stepped out. It was Nathan, my longtime assistant and operations manager. He wore a flawless charcoal suit and carried a tablet. He walked straight into the boutique without hesitation. The soft chime of the door sounded almost deafening in the sudden quiet. Nathan scanned the room quickly, completely ignoring the staff's curious stares, and headed right for me. He stopped at a respectful distance, posture perfectly professional. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said in a calm, steady voice that carried through the whole room. "The new VIP fleet just arrived from the manufacturer. As we discussed, I rerouted them here on the delivery drive. We only need your final signature on the acceptance before they head to the main depot." Everyone in the room froze. The saleswoman's eyes went wide. Claire's jaw practically hit the floor as her gaze darted between me, Nathan, and the row of huge vehicles outside. Ryan finally lifted his head, totally blindsided. I gave Nathan a slow nod, smoothed my simple skirt, and stood up from the sofa without any rush. I could feel all those shocked eyes on me, but I wasn't savoring some dramatic revenge. I was just a woman handling a normal business decision. I picked up my handbag and looked Claire straight in the eyes. Her smug little smile had vanished, replaced by pure confusion and a flicker of panic. I turned to Nathan, took the digital pen from him, and signed the document. "Thank you, Nathan. The vehicles look flawless," I said quietly. How was my daughter-in-law going to handle this new reality? "Wait! What the hell is going on?" Claire stammered, trying awkwardly to step toward me in that heavy gown. The expensive fabric rustled loudly in the silence. Ryan stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time in his life. "Mom, whose cars are those? What does this mean?" I looked at my son. No anger, no shouting, just a deep, almost tired clarity in my eyes. "That's the new fleet for my company, Ryan. The business you both thought I'd sold off and shut down years ago." I turned to the saleswoman who had suddenly shifted into this overly eager, almost groveling posture. "That dress really does look stunning on my daughter-in-law," I said evenly. "But like she already pointed out so clearly, my little retirement check won't cover it. She and my son will have to take care of the bill themselves. Have a nice day." With that, I turned away. Claire called something after me, her voice shrill and panicked, but I ignored it completely. Nathan held open the door of the lead SUV for me, and I climbed in. The heavy door closed with a solid, satisfying thud, shutting out the absurd scene in the boutique entirely. As we pulled away, I glanced through the tinted glass and saw Claire wildly gesturing at Ryan. On the drive to the office, I didn't think about the wedding dress or the stunned faces. I thought about my home. Ryan and Claire had been living rent-free upstairs for 2 years. They barely chipped in for utilities and treated my second car like it was theirs. I'd allowed it out of love for my son, hoping they'd save for their future. But today, I saw what they were really saving for flashy appearances on my dime. It was time to set things straight. Not with endless arguments, but with simple facts. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and canceled the automatic transfer to our joint household account with 3 quick taps. How long would it take them to notice the money was gone? When I got home late that afternoon, the house was completely quiet. Golden sunlight from the setting sun poured into the hallway. I hung up my coat neatly and looked at the door leading upstairs. It had always stood open, a symbol of my endless, unconditional hospitality. That was about to change. I went to the little console table in the hall where we kept the spare keys and took the one for the upstairs unit. I slipped it deep into my pocket. From now on, there would be clear boundaries. Then I headed down to the basement. Over the past few months, Claire had quietly started filling my storage shelves with her endless online shopping haul shoes and seasonal decorations. It was my basement. I calmly and methodically moved all her boxes and packages out into the hallway right in front of their door. I didn't throw anything away or damage a thing, I just put my own space back in order. Once the storage room was completely cleared, I locked the door and took that key too. Back upstairs in the kitchen, I gathered up the shared grocery credit cards that had been lying carelessly on the counter. They were in my name, even though Ryan and Claire used them every day for their shopping. I cut them in half with kitchen shears and tossed the pieces in the trash. No explanations. No passive-aggressive notes. Actions speak louder and clearer than any words ever could. I made myself a cup of tea, sat down at the kitchen table, and felt the house already breathing easier, lighter, cleaner, more honest. I knew things were about to get loud. I knew Claire would try to regain control. But control only works when you create dependencies, and I was cutting every single one. At exactly 6 o'clock, I heard tires crunching on the gravel driveway. What would Claire say first when she burst through the door? The front door flew open, and sharp, angry footsteps echoed down the hall. "Is she here?" I heard Claire's shrill voice shaking with rage. Ryan muttered something I couldn't make out clearly, trying to calm her down. I took a slow sip of my warm tea and just waited. The kitchen door swung open hard, and Claire stood in the doorway, her face flushed red, with bottled-up fury. Ryan hovered behind her eyes, darting nervously around the room. I set my teacup down quietly and looked at them both, completely calm. I didn't offer her a seat. What the hell was that ridiculous show this afternoon? Claire burst out, not even bothering to greet me. She planted herself in front of my table, arms crossed aggressively. It wasn't a show, Claire. It was just my work day. I'm sorry it interrupted your fitting, I answered with a composure that clearly pissed her off even more. You just left us standing there. The saleswoman basically kicked us out because we couldn't pay for the dress on the spot. You could have at least said something. I did, I replied, matter-of-factly. I said I wasn't paying for it. You two are adults who want to get married. Adults pay for their own clothes. Ryan finally stepped forward. Mom, that was seriously embarrassing. We always thought you were barely getting by. Then you show up with a whole fleet of luxury SUVs. Why didn't you ever tell us you still owned the company? Because it's my private life and my business. Ryan, I said, without a trace of apology. I've let you live here, rent-free. I've covered your weekly groceries. I've given you a car to use. My bank balance is none of your concern. Claire snorted in disgust. That's not even the point. You deliberately humiliated me in front of that saleswoman. How would she react once she realized the money tap had been shut off for good? Claire, I said softly, but so firmly that she instinctively took a step back. You tried to humiliate me. I simply didn't let you. And that's why I made some long overdue changes to our living situation this afternoon. I pulled the little wooden bowl with the remaining household cash toward me, opened the kitchen drawer, placed the money inside, and locked it. Starting tomorrow, you're on your own for everything. No more shared shopping on my dime. The automatic transfer is already stopped and the credit cards are gone. Claire stared at the locked drawer like I'd just cut off her air supply. You're trying to starve us over a dress. It's not about the dress, Claire. It's about respect and taking responsibility for yourselves, I said. Completely relaxed, leaning back in my chair. You both have good jobs. There's no good reason why I should keep covering your daily living expenses. Claire let out a thin, nervous laugh. She turned to Ryan for backup. Say something? Your mom's lost her mind. We're right in the middle of planning this wedding. It costs a fortune. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. Flustered. Mom can't. We talk about this reasonably. We really need the help right now. The venue by the lake, the catering. Everything's booked, and the deposits are due. You booked a wedding you clearly can't afford if you're still relying on my financial support, I said plainly. I stood up, walked to the sink and washed my teacup thoroughly, deliberately turning my back to them. She needed my face, my reactions to work her manipulations, and I took that stage away. By the way, I moved your boxes out of my basement storage and put them in front of your door, Claire. I need my space back. Good night. Would they even catch on to the basement hint right away? The next morning, I left the house very early. The sun had just come up, and the air was still cool. When I returned late that afternoon, I immediately noticed the familiar silver Audi parked crooked and careless in the driveway, the one Claire drove to work every day. It was officially registered to my company. For 2 years, I'd quietly paid the insurance taxes and maintenance without complaint. It had been a motherly favor, not anymore. I went straight to the hall key cabinet. The spare key for the Audi was right where it always hung. I took it, walked back outside, got in the car, started it up, and drove off. I took it straight to the company lot and parked it in the secure underground garage. I told Nathan to unregister it immediately and get it ready for sale. The company didn't need that particular model anymore, and I wasn't about to keep paying for Claire's convenience. Then I took a cab home. It felt incredibly freeing. I didn't argue. I didn't justify myself. I simply took back privileges that had stopped being appreciated and started being exploited. As soon as I stepped inside, I heard quick, furious footsteps on the stairs. Claire came rushing down, her designer bag slung over her shoulder. "Where's the car?" she demanded sharply. "I have an important meeting in the city and the car is just gone. The car is safe at the company lot. I'm selling it in the next few days," I answered calmly, hanging my jacket neatly on the hanger. Claire stopped on the bottom step, her face a mask of total disbelief. How was she supposed to get to work now? Sell it? Have you completely lost it? How am I supposed to get to my meeting? How am I supposed to get to work tomorrow? She practically screamed. "The bus stop is only a 5-minute walk. Or you can buy your own car, or call a cab," I said evenly. "That's theft. That's my car." "No, Claire. The car belongs to my company. You were allowed to use it as a courtesy. That arrangement is officially over." I left her fuming on the stairs and walked into my living room. A little while later that evening, after it had gotten dark, there was a soft knock on my living room door. Ryan came in. He looked exhausted, pale, and worn out. He dropped into the armchair across from me and buried his face in his hands. "Claire is completely losing it. She called me at work and almost cried. She thinks you're trying to force us out of the house." I set my book aside and looked at my son carefully. "I'm not trying to force you out, Ryan. I'm just creating fair adult living arrangements. You've been using resources you don't pay for while treating me with zero respect. That stops now. But the car, Mom. How is any of this supposed to work? That's exactly the question you two should be asking yourselves." I stood up, took a prepared folder from my desk and placed it on the small coffee table in front of him. I sat down and objectively calculated our living situation. You have 1,200 square feet upstairs. So far, you've paid nothing. Ryan stared at the folder. "What is this?" "It's a standard fair lease agreement," I said. "I'm not asking for anything outrageous, just the going market rate for the area, plus your share of utilities, like electricity, water, and heat. You'll be covering your own groceries and transportation from now on anyway." Would Ryan finally understand that real life had just started? Ryan swallowed hard, looking at the document with a mix of fear and disbelief. We can't afford this, Mom. Not with the monthly wedding payments. Claire wanted that super expensive dress, and the exclusive lakeside venue can't be canceled for free. That's a question of your priorities." I interrupted gently, but without any compromise. "Either you scale back your over-the-top wedding plans to match your actual finances, or you'll need to find cheaper housing. The lease starts the 1st of next month. I expect your final decision and signature by then." I picked my book back up and opened it. Ryan sat there silently for a long moment before he took the folder and left the room without another word. The next 2 days passed in a heavy, icy silence. Whenever we crossed paths in the hallway or driveway, not a single word was spoken. Claire avoided eye contact, her face stiff and cold. Through my kitchen window, I watched her walk grimly to the bus stop every morning, collar turned up against the chill. The many packages I'd moved out of the basement still sat untouched in their upstairs hallway, blocking the way. On the evening of the 3rd day, they both suddenly appeared together in my kitchen. Ryan held the lease folder in his hand. It clearly hadn't been opened. Claire stood beside him with her arms crossed, her expression flipping between pure defiance and raw, open desperation. "We've made our decision," Ryan said in a quiet, strained voice. He set the folder back on my kitchen table. "We can't possibly pay this rent, not without canceling the entire wedding. Claire refuses to change any of the plans." I looked at Claire. She quickly looked away. Her artificial house of cards built on status and arrogance had finally collapsed. When would they finally start packing? "That's your choice," I said, without the slightest trace of accusation. "I accept it. When exactly do you plan to move out of my house?" End of the month, Ryan answered defeated eyes fixed on the floor tiles. We found a small two-bedroom apartment way out on the edge of town. It's tight, but we can swing it on our salaries. He looked at me, and for a brief moment I saw the uncertain little boy he used to be. I'm sorry, Mom. For everything. In the boutique. And after. It's not about apologies, Ryan. It's about you two living your own lives with your own money. I won't be the invisible ATM anymore. Claire let out a quiet snort, spun around, and stormed out of the kitchen. The last Saturday of the month was cool but sunny. A small beat-up rental moving truck sat in my driveway. Ryan and a couple of his friends carried heavy furniture and countless boxes outside. Claire bossed the guys around impatiently, her shrill voice echoing through the stairwell. I stayed in my living room reading a book and sipping my coffee. I didn't help carry anything. I didn't offer any well-meaning advice. When the truck was almost full, there was a soft knock. Ryan stood in the doorway holding the heavy key ring for the upstairs unit. He placed it quietly on the side table. We're heading out now. I nodded. As soon as the truck disappeared down the street, I took the returned key and tucked it deep into my desk drawer. Then I walked slowly upstairs. The rooms were completely empty, echoing lightly with every step. There was still a faint trace of Claire's heavy perfume, but that would fade soon enough. I opened all the big windows upstairs and let the fresh, cool air pour in. I felt no sadness, no loneliness, only a deep, honest relief. I had taken back my home and my peace of mind. I went downstairs to the kitchen and put fresh water on to boil. The complete silence in the house was the most beautiful sound in the world. Sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's the moment you stop explaining yourself and start deciding how others are allowed to treat you.